Hey everyone, this is Beta Chieftain. If this is your first time listening to us, we just wanted to say thank you. We know the audio quality in these early episodes left a lot to be desired. We've learned a lot about recording and audio since then, and we promise it gets better as you go along. We promise to keep improving and to keep bringing you the best possible podcast we can each week. Thanks again, and enjoy the show. Welcome to Ghost Stories, a Destiny podcast. It's October 3rd, 2015. This is episode number 1. So welcome, guys. I'm Beta Chieftain. I'm going to be your fire team leader this week. And this week we almost have a full fire team. There's 5 of us. I'm with Drop Slash, Gabble Ratchet, Scooby Deezy, and X-Ray. So this being our first episode, we want to do some introductions and kind of just let you listeners get to know us. So X-Ray, why don't you kick that off?
All right, I'm X-Ray441. That is my gamer tag on Xbox One, which I play on mainly. I'm also on PS4, but haven't really worked on those characters too much. I'm a member of the Dads of Destiny Uprising clan. Have been with them since early this year. Was a good move for me. I found a lot of guys in my same situation as far as being in a pretty active family life and a lot of kids running around, so they take up a lot of my time. And there you go. There's kids right there. That's a perfect cue right there. But it works out really well for me. I've got 4 kids right now and 1 on the way, so my fire team's almost full. I think that's it though for me. But yeah, being a dad's my number 1 job, and it's great. I love it. So that's it for me. Oh, I'm from I live in the Midwest, so I'm in Missouri, and have known Beta Chieftain and Gabble Ratchet since I've been in the clan, and Drop Slash and Scooby I'm just now kind of getting to know for the first time. So
awesome, thanks X-Ray. And what class do you run? What's your favorite build?
Oh yeah. So I started out as a hunter, and have kind of stuck with that one. I enjoyed a lot, but I do have all 3 classes leveled up and have played with each one of them quite a bit. I can honestly say that the hunter is a pretty hard class to play, for me at least. I feel like when I go back and do run, I mainly run like Iron Banner and things like that on my Titan and Warlock, and they're they definitely seem a little OP compared to my weak hunter, but I do like the speed and agility and just everything about being a hunter. So that's me. I'm a hunter at heart.
Awesome. Drop Slash, why don't you go?
Drop Slash, and that is also my gamer tag on Xbox One, which is also my chosen platform. I run Hunter main. I have all 3 classes leveled up, but Hunter was my first and my real love, and I'm absolutely in love with Night Stalker right now. I'm the clan leader of a small clan called War 9. I've always played support for my clan, and Night Stalker just lets me do that so much better. It also helps because there's only 2 other people in my clan, and they're both Titan mains, so I'm sort of like the running in the background, reviving people, and supporting them. I live out in San Francisco, out on the West Coast, which is a fun time. I'm a professional photographer, and I've worked in the video game industry for a very long time for different studios along the way. I worked for Microsoft for a while and Harmonix for a while. And I currently am helping out on Destiny Timeline with Scooby. So that's a project that we took on and are having an awesome time with. And because it's in the notes here, my favorite piece of lore personally is Hive lore. I have a soft spot for Toland. He's one of my favorite characters. But when it comes to listening to other people talk about lore, I love everybody who explores the Vault of Glass and the Vex lore. Those guys are my heroes.
Awesome. And yeah, I guess we should call that out really quick. This is a lore podcast. I was going to go into that a little bit more in a bit, but the whole idea of Ghost Stories is we wanted to have a dedicated weekly source for lore discussion and news and just, awesomeness, because we felt that was something the community could really use. And so, X-Ray, really quick, going back to you, what's your favorite piece of lore? And then we'll jump over to Scooby.
So me and Gabble Ratchet have went back and forth a little bit on. There's a laugh. I knew it was coming. I really like the Dredge and Yor and the Thorn and Last Word lore. And it's not. It just interests me. It just kind of the whole kind of good, bad, dark, light. Really kind of cryptic stuff, just of an individual person or people, and not an entire group. And then, to be honest, my favorite source of lore so far has been Beta and Gabble, just the conversations that I get to witness. I mean, amongst this group, I am definitely the new guy. I'm the kindergarten of lore, so I'm learning a lot from these guys. And I ask a lot of dumb questions that sometimes spark a little bit of a, hey, maybe he's might have said something halfway smart, but for the most part, they teach me a lot. And just again, looking and reading their conversations and getting introduced to some of the stuff on Reddit and the timeline that Scooby and Drop Slash have done, man, that was great. I love that, and that was part of the reason, when we talked, me and Beta and Gabble, thinking those guys would be great to try to get in on this, and that's hopefully what they think as well. So I'm glad they're here and have given me a lot of information. So anyway, I'll shut up now. I can go on for hours. All right.
All right, Scooby.
Yeah, so I'm Scooby DZ, which is also my Xbox One gamer tag, and that is an old, terrible high school nickname that has just followed me around, and I guess by decision, because I made that my gamer tag, but that's another story. And I am a Hunter main. Started with Hunter, and during House of Wolves, I kind of neglected my first love, and I tried out the other two classes to see if I would like them better. I've got all three maxed, but I went back to Hunter, man. I came back home. It's a good one. So, but yeah, I'm glad to be here. As you guys have mentioned, Drop Slash and I have been working on Destiny Timeline, and we did that really just because I really wanted to see something like that was interactive, that could really help new players summarize all the big pieces and get a picture of what's going on in Destiny, because there's so much that's out there, and sometimes it can be hard to really get a handle on the bigger picture. So, and then I am in Texas, so way down there. Not from originally, but I am a Texan now. So
cool.
And yeah, if we're gonna go with favorite piece of lore too, I'm gonna have to say right now, Book of Sorrows. I'm just eating that up like crazy. Just there's so much there. But honestly, man, it's flavor of the week. Whatever's new, whatever's a new discovery, that's my favorite piece of lore. I just love learning the different things that are being peeled away for us in layers by the writers at Bungie. They've just been doing an excellent job. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Scooby. So, Gabble?
All right, I am Gabble Ratchet, 98. I'm also a Texan, actually. I'm from down in Houston.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm a warlock at heart who occasionally dabbles in other classes. Night Stalker is pretty fun, but warlock is definitely where it's at. My favorite lore is going to have to be Vex lore. Just ever since Vanilla came out, they were always my favorite. The Vault of Glass has been my playground for almost a year now, so I don't know. Nothing else. I gotta say the Hive stuff has really intrigued me a lot more recently. Yes, thank you. You listeners and all. If you hear the baby, that's mine. When she makes noise when I'm not talking, I'll edit it out, so you shouldn't have to hear her too much. But no, since Taken King came out, the Hive lore has definitely stepped it up, and I've been enjoying that a lot. But Vex is still going to be number one for me.
Awesome. All right, and then I'm a Beta Chieftain, also on the Xbox One. That's my gamer tag. And let's see. I play a Titan. I started as a Titan. I have Warlock, I have Hunter, but they tend to suffer because I love playing. I really like playing Defender, although now with Sunbreaker, that's obviously my new love. But I'm an Exo Titan. And you could probably tell from my class, but my favorite lore is Exo stuff. Really it's anything with robots. So Vex, Exo, Rasputin, Future War Cult, anything that's robotic, I enjoy. But generally, yeah, Exos, Deepstone Crypt, and yeah, all that stuff. Just love it. And I'm from Utah, so Mountain West, Provo area. So I've always liked the city and the tower in the game because the mountains remind me of home. So it's it feels good sitting on the balcony looking over the city. But all right, so moving on, I kind of brought up before this is a lore podcast, and I don't know if you guys have any other input on that, but I mean, really, that's what we wanted to do was just talk about lore and a lot.
Well, as we've discovered recently with the huge info dump we kind of got with the Taken King, there's a lot to talk about now.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to have to edit this podcast down so that you listeners aren't burdened too much, because we could just in our chats during work days and things, we go on for hours. So
yes, we do.
Trying to keep it into a short and succinct podcast will be a challenge, but hopefully we can accomplish that. And I guess talking about lore, probably everybody here has some favorite sources. So for all you listening, Destiny, it's definitely a game that requires you to do a little digging, to be resourceful, and to rely on the community. And so for lore, there's no exception. So you've got the Grimoire, which the game gives you. I've found that the DestinyLore subreddit is really awesome. I really just discovered that probably 2 weeks ago, but I love that thing. Lots of discussion on there. The rest of you guys, what are some of your favorite kind of sources for lore in the community?
Timeline, the Destiny timeline, along with Scoob, I have to say the Ishtar Collective, the work that they do over there is invaluable. The way they have everything sorted and searchable, it's just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, we turn to that constantly when we're trying to cross-reference data and figure out when things happen. It's
and
really
then
awesome.
The lore subreddit. I wasn't a huge part of it. I read a lot of lore on the regular Destiny the Game subreddit, and then somebody pointed me towards DestinyLore, and it's just, I'm like, this is exactly what I wanted. Like, it's like a forum just for like extrapolating weird ideas and really digging into sort of like the meat of the information that's been presented, and that's also been invaluable to sort of, because when you're digging deep into information like this, there's always somebody who has like knowledge of something else or a different experience with the exact same piece of information, and the varying ideas and viewpoints has been hugely helpful.
Yeah, it's a great place to go and just like dump a crazy idea and see what the community thinks of it, and just see what comes back. And it's really been invaluable for figuring things out.
It's something for me. I'm the perfect audience for this podcast because I like to have things explained to me and listen. So I tend to migrate towards YouTube, and I like some of the videos that Sir Wallen does, as well as like I think it's what is it, Biff, yeah, and those a lot of times they'll read through the lore and then try to break it down afterwards, and so that's helpful. And what's neat though is you see so many conflicting interpretations of the lore. And so that's something else, that I think that we should kind of point out is, a lot of the stuff we'll try to keep it separate and say, look, this is fact. The lore says this, and there's really no arguing with it. But there's going to be a lot of stuff that we might interpret a little different than others. I mean, this is kind of like the Destiny Bible, and everyone knows that the Bible is amazing, the greatest book that was ever written. It's been interpreted so many different ways, and people kind of view it and use it from their personal experiences and things that they think. So hearing what everyone says and what they do is pretty awesome, and that's what we're doing here. So keep that in mind as you disagree with some of our stuff.
Well, and I love too how that's even reflected in the game with all the different factions and the Trinary Star cult and all the different little things in the game that believe different things about the Traveler. All these different philosophies and interpretations is also reflected back inside Destiny itself, which I think is a neat little nod that helps us kind of immerse ourselves in the lore, because we get to pick a side, like we get to pick Future War Cult because we think they're right, or Dead Orbit or whatever it is. It kind of helps the immersion of Destiny be even that much stronger.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, the in-game characters are just as in the dark on some of the stuff as we are. And so the cool thing about this game is that, yeah, we get to kind of be right there as guardians, as listeners, discussing these things just with the in-character people or the in-game people.
Exactly.
Who are trying to figure this stuff out. And that's why, I like Future War Cult, and it has nothing to do with their weapons or their armor or whatever. It's more just lore-wise, I tend to skew their direction. And then I'm sure you guys, everyone skews a different direction on the lore. It likes different stuff.
Yeah, one thing, I mean, it's when I started out playing, I really had no idea how large of a span this kind of covered, and the timeline that you guys did really helped me understand how broad it is. And then again, the Book of Sorrows made it even a bigger scope. I mean, this is happening over millennia, it sounds like. So it's tough to kind of get that just from playing the game unless you dig into the lore and try to figure out some of that stuff. So it's pretty amazing how huge they've kind of made
one of
this
the other
world.
One of the other great things that was pointed out over on the Destiny subreddit is that up until right now in the game, people came before us. Kaber and his team went into the Vault of Glass, and the first Crota Fire team went down to face Crota. But we're the first to face down Oryx. Like, the lore now is being created in real time by us, and that's an exciting thing to be a part of.
Yeah, we're finally the Vanguard, actually.
Yeah, it's cool.
So at this point, I'm going to, for time's sake, like we mentioned earlier, I'm going to move us along. And so with each episode, we're going to try and focus on specific lore topics, specific people. But with this being the premiere episode, the first thing, we kind of just wanted to do a summary. For those of you who may have picked up The Taken King and jumped into that, and maybe you didn't play Year 1 content, or even those who played Year 1 content and still don't know what the heck's happening, we wanted to do just kind of a summary discussion today of what we know. And we're going to have to restrict ourselves to try and not go too in-depth on anything. And if you're looking for stuff in depth, it will come in future episodes. We're just going to try and avoid it today for sake of not going down the rabbit hole. But to start out with, just the question I think on everyone's mind is, what is Destiny? What is this game about? Why don't you guys respond to that?
I think it's right in the title. It's sort of about destiny and the different ways that can be interpreted. At the moment, I think we're just now stumbling upon our destiny, but now we have this entire past of other people's destinies that we're walking through, and that sort of started, I think, really with I would say it started with the arrival of the Traveler, and that kicks everything off that we currently know. But after reading the Books of Sorrow, we know that a lot has been going on prior to that. So let's maybe we should catch ourselves up quickly just by going through the games in the real world and what we know so far.
Yeah, and the Traveler, we know that it's some type of spaceship. We know that because we can see it from the city. But, even now, we're not totally sure what it even was. If it was some, artificial intelligence, if there was an alien species in there, if it, we really don't know up to this point what the Traveler was, other than that it showed up and it started making all of our lives better.
Yeah, I mean, I think the short story there is that, this thing, this Traveler, appears in our solar system, and then all of a sudden, our solar system starts getting crazy terraformed and bioformed, and suddenly we can go to Venus and Mercury and Mars, and they're all inhabitable planets, and technology explodes, and humanity goes from sort of, I guess, where we are now, to sending folks out to meet the Traveler, which is the infamous Ares 1 mission. And that kicks off this golden age, this amazing age of prosperity for humanity. And there's all these crazy science and philosophy and all the technology that we're experiencing in game now. This all sort of came from this massive, incredible golden age, this next renaissance of humanity kicked off by the Traveler.
Yeah, and it really brought us together. If you, that Ares 1 mission, it was this kind of joint mission between Russia, China, and the U.S. And it's actually cool, if you walk around the tower, you'll notice all the signs, that point to North Tower and all the different areas. They'll be in Chinese and Russian and, English. Then kind of still carrying that forward even to now. And so, we had this golden age, prosperity. During this time, humanity kind of went through a bunch of different, really they were military projects, which is an interesting thing that we don't really know a lot about right now, why there was such this, a huge military presence during the Golden Age. But we ended up creating something called the war mines, which are basically these hyper-intelligent, artificial intelligences that
controlled nuclear warheads.
That controlled nuclear warheads and basically
enormous doomsday weapons.
Tons of weapons of mass destruction.
Well, I think that's very human nature. Like, this giant thing appears in the sky and starts gifting us with all these crazy technologies. It's very human nature to be like, we need a way to blow this thing up just in case.
Sounds friendly.
Well, and that's even reflected in some of the new information we have about the main war mind in the story, Rasputin, who's kind of a character in the game now. Even in this new revelations, he's like, just in case the Traveler's bad, here's all these other protocols that we're going to have. So I think there definitely is this sense of, we still, there's this golden age, good things are happening, but this still could turn out really badly. So yeah, it's exactly that human nature to prepare for the worst.
Yeah, that's very true. And we should point out too, this wasn't just happening on Earth. I mean, like was said earlier, we could go to Venus now. We could go to Mars, and because the Traveler terraformed these planets, and so we didn't just have this scientific advancement on Earth, but we started going to Venus and discovering the Vex ruins, starting to research that, setting up entire academies around research in Clovis Bray on Mars. We don't know exactly what he was researching yet, possibly the exos, but just these huge scientific projects were kind of spanning our entire solar system as we branched out.
It's interesting, that split is very interesting with sort of a very hardcore, when I think of scientists, like dudes in white lab coats, doing very intense studies, a lot of those folks ended up on Venus. And then when you think of people who are making much more sort of practical city and military technologies, they sort of migrated towards Mars and Clovis Bray.
Yeah, there's very much that sort of distinction and where people decided to go.
Yeah. And I guess we should point out that despite all this awesome technology and, beautiful new things, it didn't really last.
It never does.
Never does. And I'm not aware off the top of my head if we know right now how long the Golden Age lasted. I think, at least 100 years, but I don't know if any of you guys have a better ballpark on that, or if we just don't know at this point.
Centuries, I think, is the quote from the Ghost at some point in the game. It's kind of his general. He throws that out there every time there's a date span. It's this was golden age for centuries. It's like it kind of seems. But I'm that's the understanding is 200-300, maybe even a lot longer than that.
Cool.
But yeah,
I think we have it spanning somewhere about 300 years, sort of like 21st century to.
Okay. And then, and so, and this is mentioned in the Book of Sorrows, which we don't want to go in too much right now, but the Traveler has always had this nemesis, basically referred to as the darkness. And our solar system is not the first solar system that the Traveler has visited, although it was the last, as far as we know. And basically that's what ended us. Something we call the darkness came and ended everything.
Yeah, so we sort of had this current belief that the Traveler was on the run from this darkness, and the darkness followed it to our system.
Yep.
And that was sort of the lead into what is referred to as the collapse, which is the end of the Golden Age, and Rasputin sort of sees this thing converging on the very edges of our solar system, sort of kind of understands what it is. There's so many strange goings on here in the lore, like with the Black Garden and what Rasputin believes the darkness to be and all these different theories. But all we know is that the war minds tried to fight the darkness. They got overwhelmed, and humanity suffered this immense collapse and was kicked back almost to the Stone Ages here.
Yeah. Well, one thing we do know is that Rasputin, in the end, he realized he couldn't win, and he chose to basically just give up. He chose to go into hiding, essentially. And so a lot of people in the current, our timeline as Guardians, a lot of people don't necessarily trust Rasputin or his motives because they know that, he was there to protect us, but at the same time, he kind of just gave us up to the darkness in the end.
And that's sort of this Yuga sundown. It's also worth mentioning that at this point, with the incoming darkness, thousands and thousands, maybe millions of humans chose to leave Earth. So these massive ships, and you see them all over the Cosmodrome, these colony ships were all loaded up with people in these stasis pods, and they went flying off into space and trying to escape what they believe is this oncoming disaster. Unfortunately for them, that did not end well. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
And then, and that's one of the cool things that we've discovered so far, that the whole beginning of the collapse is becoming much more, revealed to us through our interactions now with Rasputin and Yuga Sundown. And, if it was, we've always been told that the Traveler chose to make its last stand against the darkness on Earth. And what it kind of looks like now is that it was Rasputin held the Traveler here and forced it to fight back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we should point out that it's definitely not confirmed.
No.
But evidence, it's kind of 50-50 right now. It's definitely possible at this point that Rasputin not only gave up, but kind of told the Traveler, no, you're going to stay here and you're going to fight.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a pattern that we've seen with the Traveler, but we assume we've seen with the Traveler before. It fleed from the Harmony planet way back in the beginning with the Hive, and it, when the whirlwind happened to the Elixni planet, which we can get into at some point way down the road,
and we should mention
it ran away there too.
The Elixni are fallen. We should mention. Humanity called them the Fallen. Their real name is the Elixni.
But the Traveler, it's got a bad pattern of running away when the darkness comes, and so the fact that it stayed, it's a big deal.
So for me now, all right. So we have the Traveler here, and everything's going bad, and we've got people that are fleeing the planet. So what's next? What happens to these fleeing individuals and to the Traveler?
Well, whatever the Traveler did when when it died, there's sort of this sense that it triggered this like blast of light that sort of envelops, sort of the whole inner planets of the solar system, and it imbued humans on Earth with light. And then all of these fleeing humans that were, at this point, they had reached the asteroid belt, right? They're leaving, they're trying to get away. The Traveler it stays on Earth. It kind of has this last stand. There's this, sense of this something that it does. And these fleeing humans are caught in the wake right between the light and the oncoming darkness. And their fleet is just utterly demolished. It's destroyed. We don't really know what happens, but out of that destruction, they are born into a brand new race called the Awoken. And they sort of have this both light and dark kind of feel to them. And even the Queen says, my mother was the dark, or something like that.
Her mother was the light and her father was the dark.
Yeah. So there's this sense that they were born out of the combination of both the light and the dark. And we don't know much about that story yet.
It's also interesting that makes a very interesting distinction, because the solar system as we know it, extends all the way out to Pluto, but it's made very clear, like even in the game, even Ghost says, the last place the light touches, meaning that it's really the inner ring of planets that is the safe haven of humanity. We don't own our solar system anymore.
Right, that's very true. I think we've all been anxious to get to Jupiter and get to Saturn, which we kind of did with Taken King.
So then all right, so we've got kind of where the Awoken came from, and now we're where. So let's kind of see if we can keep kind of going through this timeline and get kind of the basics down of kind of the early Destiny game as far as what people know, because as far as players know, the ghost just came, woke you up, and you started fighting, right? So we're kind of are getting to that point. I think we're right there now. So let's go into that a little bit more.
Right. So right after, I kind of simultaneously, according to the lore, when the Traveler kind of let out this burst of light and created the Awoken, it sent out these things called ghosts, and the ghosts basically they kind of represent the Traveler now. They're its last bits of light, and they're those little robotic machines that fly around. And they were tasked with a singular purpose, and that was to find guardians, or those who could wield the light as a weapon.
And as we're learning, it's kind of a brilliant tactic. This is sort of, I think at least when I first started Destiny, I'm like, oh, that's a very like Deus Ex Machina. Here's this thing that can bring me back to life, and now I just run around and do things. But as you get deeper into lore, you realize the creation of the Guardians as a last-ditch effort to fight the darkness turns out to be a pretty brilliant move. So we can get into that. We get into I'm sure we'll have a cast about the nature of the Guardians and the light.
Yeah.
Well, and the new opening sequence for Taken King, it kind of drives home how important that is, because the ghost, he goes on, he says, before this happened, there'd never been a ghost before. There had never been a guardian. Never before in this Traveler's history of eons in the galaxy has there ever been a race that has wielded its light so directly. We are a very unique force that has really never been seen before.
I think there's a lot of, even with the penchant for space magic, like I think that's a very important part of this story, where we are wholly unique when it comes to our ability to wield the light.
And I think that's partially why, we want to believe that the Traveler stayed and fought for us, because if this is the first time the Traveler's ever created ghosts and ever created guardians, there must have been something special about us. At least that's, what we want to believe, and it's what the game kind of leads us to believe. But that is still up in the air. And what's interesting in Taken King, too, is the ghost mentions that he was searching, and I guess I should point this out, to anyone playing the game, it's kind of weird in that there's a lot of guardians. You go to the tower, and there's guardians all over the place.
And they all dance a lot.
And they all dance a ton. Even the Grimmer, the Cabal, are amazed at the amount of dancing that occurs. But what's interesting is in terms of like the lore and the game, they're always referring to the Guardian, which is like you, the person you're playing in this sea of Guardians, you're special. You're the one who went into the Vault of Glass. You're the one who killed Crota. You're the one who kills Oryx. And so with that in mind, it's interesting because in Taken King, the ghost says that he was looking for you for a long time. And it's
centuries.
Centuries.
Yeah.
There's that word again.
Centuries, yeah. Your ghost was around for centuries looking for you. And so it begs the question, were the ghosts tasked with finding specific people? Or did the ghost just not find anyone else with enough light? And it doesn't quite answer it, but it is kind of an interesting thought that these ghosts, it wasn't just a last-ditch effort, but they might have even been kind of assigned to resurrect specific people to accomplish the tasks the Traveler no longer could.
Well, whether it's canon or not, given that today is October 3rd, today's daily heroic mission, which is Cade's Stash, there's an Easter egg hidden in the very end. You can scan one of the pods inside the colony ship, and your ghost will tell you a story about how he tried to revive the person inside because his light was unbelievably strong. But that person chose to stay sleeping instead.
Huh.
Now that's interesting.
Which I think is a
didn't even know that
little
was a
subtle
thing.
nod.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
So it's sort of interesting that it seems almost like becoming a guardian, there's an aspect of choice that is also involved there.
Oh yeah, for the Guardian themselves. Exactly. That's interesting. And I was thinking about this while you were talking, and it makes you wonder too. I mean, to me, when I heard that, is the ghost somewhat kind of self-aware, or does their personality or lack thereof kind of determine what kind of guardian they're looking for? I mean, you start to see this with other characters, how their ghosts really kind of play to their, whenever they have some of the ghosts discussions, how it kind of plays to that character's overall nature. And so, it's like picking a wife or a husband or whatever. You're picking someone that's gonna kind of key off of the things you like or do, or your personality, or someone the opposite, and so it makes me wonder if the ghosts have kind of that choice, and maybe that's why it took so long. They couldn't quite find that person they want to be attached to for the rest of their days.
Well, it's interesting because in that opening cutscene now with the little ghost monologue, he mentions seeing all the other ghosts find their guardians, and he didn't, and it took him so long. And it really, when I heard that, there's this sense that we're as important to the ghost to imbue them with a sense of purpose as the ghost is to us, and allowing us to channel the light that represents the Traveler.
Yeah, and that actually comes up in the X-ray. You'll appreciate this. In the, I can never get this name right, but the DestinyLore lore, in the Thorn Grimmer cards and fragments and the Last Word fragments, there's a few spots where the ghosts are having discussions with their guardians, and in those discussions, the ghost really is worried about the guardians, and the ghost is very concerned with choosing darkness or choosing light, and the ghost's sense of purpose. But it's like the ghost really feels this overwhelming responsibility and a mission, not just to find us and then revive us, but to find us, revive us, and then help us along our journey, help teach us about the light, and kind of this, this much deeper role.
It's kind of like, it's a subconscious almost.
It's a subconscious almost. Yeah, there's a moral ethos there.
So,
and yeah, I'm guessing we should move along. And I think today, a good goal for today will be maybe even to get up to midway through the main story. There's a lot, and I'm more concerned with good discussion than covering everything. But so our ghost found us, and the beginning of the game is very much okay. Our ghost found us. Now, please hurry and get out of the Cosmodrome before you get killed, and make your way to the last city, which is part of this traveler lore where the traveler made its last stand against humanity, and kind of this city, now after the collapse, a city of refugees kind of formed below the traveler. And there's now this place called the Tower where all the Guardians collect and do their thing. So I think it is important now we kind of talk about what exactly is the Tower, what goes on there, and then one of the main people in the Tower, the speaker, and kind of who's that and what's his purpose.
This is an important part of the story, and we're learning more about it now. I certainly have, as I've been digging into the lore. Is that after the collapse, there's this really long dark age where it's sort of like the light of the traveler is gone, Earth is in terrible shape, we've lost the other planets, and sort of what's left of humanity is just sort of like scrounging around in this weird post-apocalyptic scenario. And it really was the Guardians. The first ghosts are released, and the Guardians aren't tasked with fighting the darkness and, helping wage this cosmic fight. The Guardians really are these heralds who are trying to round up the survivors. They're out there hunting for people, and then guided by their ghosts to try and find the traveler. It's like, this is our last chance. We need some really powerful and skilled people out there to collect what's left of humanity and start rebuilding.
Yeah, and there's a sense that takes a very long time for generations to gather beneath the traveler, and there's during that time all the different classes sort of start to coalesce a little bit. The hunters are sort of the ones who to go out in the wilderness, and they find the refugees and they bring them to the traveler, and then as this begins happening, then there's the Titans who want to start building a wall around this new city that they've started to found, and the warlocks want to learn more about the light and the traveler. So these different classes start to sort of begin coalescing as these Guardians are discovering who they are and what they are, and the city starts to form. And it takes, again, this is a quote from in the game, centuries, the ghost says, to build the last city. It's this long time that people continue to gather and hunters continue to go out and find refugees. And eventually, there's a complicated, I don't know how much we want to go into the history, because there's different factions and wars and all these things within this city that contribute to its growth and to its leadership. But it's a long story.
That's probably definitely a future cast.
Yeah, I mean, we can say it very much becomes a human city very quickly, and all the sort of foibles that come along with it.
Yes,
but yeah, and then there's this where we as players and as Guardians, we sort of like live in the tower, which is this gigantic tower, sort of in the city itself, and it's where it's like the Guardian clubhouse. We're not regular humans. We're these Guardians, and we're overseeing the city, and we need the vantage point to do it from. And there's also sort of, we're a little bit closer to the traveler in terms of our essence. So why not physically be closer to the traveler, way up there at the top?
And we have this, and in these towers, if you look out over the city, you'll notice there is more than one. You can kind of tell off to the left and off to the right. As you look at the city, there's more than one. Though it does seem that right now, well, as far as we know, the only occupied tower right now is our current tower. It's kind of hard to say. But the tower...
Unless you're in the Crucible and playing on Bannerfall.
Right. And that's a perfect example of there was a tower that kind of just got abandoned, and that's what the Crucible map Bannerfall became. But currently, we're sitting in our current tower, and there's a guy or a robot, or we don't know what it or
we're not quite sure what he is,
but named the Speaker, and he oversees the tower. And an interesting lore point that we'll go into much later is that the Speakers, they do turn over. They're not permanent. We know that the Speaker was training Osiris to supposedly take his place at some point, but they had a falling out. But so currently we have our current Speaker. We don't know who came before him, nor do we know who will come after him. But his job is to speak for the traveler. And unfortunately, in the game, he really does anything but speak for the Traveler. He tells us he's going to tell us about the Traveler and the past, and then kind of skips over it. But
And that, combined with his mask that he hides behind, leads to lots of speculation about his motives.
yes, there's, and at this point, all opinions are valid because he could be good, he could be bad. We really don't know. I mean, what we know is that he sends us on missions, and he seems to be happy when we accomplish great feats. But yeah, he kind of is just this presence that sits in the corner of the tower. And one of New Monarchy's, one of their big points is they actually want to replace him. They don't want him in there, which kind of goes to show that the tower, everything's working well right now, but it's definitely, there's a lot of kind of ulterior motives and different things going on there. And everything happens to work out well together, but
there's a lot of friction.
There's a lot of friction.
Things could go wrong at any time, but I think they're all holding it together.
Yeah, and there's a history of sort of conflict. Different factions are kicked out, or different, and it works. It's a very human sort of political system, with the Speaker occupying this role, and the Vanguard occupying their role, and the Concordat occupying their role, and how they all have to sort of work together. It's not one person holding a very specific power over the entire city or tower. There's these sort of checks and balances in place, much like our current government. Also, I'm sure Bill Nye, who is the voice of the Speaker,
not the science guy, the other one.
Yes,
It should have been the science guy.
It would be amazing if the Speaker is recast with Bill Nye, the science guy. I think we're experiencing sort of outside of what's going on in the game. I think we're experiencing in the real world, where you cast somebody as the Speaker and then cannot afford to pay them to speak.
Which is not the first time that something like that has happened.
Poses some problems going down the line.
Yeah. So we've got, a few minutes left. How about let's try to wrap up kind of anything more we want to say about the tower, or just some of the very, kind of first parts of the game. And then I think for this week, we'll wrap it up, and we can keep discussing in future weeks. And to all our listeners, I'm sure we'll have some special episodes where we might go very long, and others will be shorter, but we'll try to keep it consistent. So is there anything else about the tower that we think is important to know?
Maybe also important to note that even the Guardians don't seem to be 100% in control of the tower. You've got somebody like Zur, who just sort of comes and goes as he pleases. So sort of elements from farther out to beyond the Guardians' influence, the Vanguard's influence, or even the Traveler's influence are able to get in there and get some things done. So.
Well, and maybe that's a good point to bring up, is the tower is not the only authority in the system. We've got the reef where the Awoken are, and the queen of the reef, and that there's a big power there. And then out somewhere, we don't even know, beyond the Jovians, the mysterious Nine, who also have sort of authority in that realm, and they send their ambassador Zur, and they make deals with the queen. And there's this sort of trifecta between the Nine, the reef, and the tower in the system. And the Nine seem to be ignoring us for the most part, except for sending Zur.
Yeah, we seem to be the least of that trifecta.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we very much get a sense that, humanity is not quite fully recovered. Like, we have the city and we have the tower, and it's all very tenuous. We're keeping the whole thing together barely. It's like a shoestring budget. And there's always people trying to kill us or attack us, and there's enemy factions all over the place. And it's like, okay, we put our flag in the ground. We got this thing. Let's just try and run it the best we can with what we got. We're by no means like a huge established like power. This isn't like a super base that we have. It is a place that we happen to all be occupying together.
And over the course of before we became Guardians, the tower, I mean, not just the fact that we were being attacked from the outside, but even we had problems within. We have characters like Toland, like Osiris, and probably many more who disagreed very much with the speaker or with other factions in the tower, and they left. And these were Guardians that left. So it wasn't just with the factions. You kind of get the sense that, you know, these are humans bickering with humans, but we also have Guardians who are supposed to, you know, currently, as far as we know, the Guardians are supposed to follow the Vanguard and follow the speaker and do what they're told. But the tower also has this history of a number of Guardians who choose to leave, and they kind of cause a lot of damage as they go.
And that's one of the things that is sort of cast some speculation on the speaker, is that these are the Guardians who leave are the ones asking questions. They're the ones who are like Osiris. He was asking questions like, are we implanted with this desire to fight by the Traveler? Are we even in control of our own wills? Are we these mindless warriors? And that was something that, you know, the speaker was deemed divisive. You know, it's a good point. Like, if he wants to keep the tower together, if he wants to keep the Guardians together, those kinds of questions can cause problems. But at the same time, it's, you know, is that pursuit of the truth more important than safety? And there's this sort of, you know, the Guardians who are really searching and asking questions tend to be exiled.
And we also know that no factions in the tower are safe, really. There used to be a faction called the Concordat that was led by this guy Lysander, who asked a ton of questions and used very extreme methods. And then sort of the Vanguard and the Speaker, and they got together like, we gotta get rid of this guy, but we can't just leave a vacuum. So what should we stick in there? And they invited the Future War Cult on up, and they became their own faction.
Mm-hmm. You know, and what's interesting is a lot of these people who leave kind of garner followings, and so that's another key point. And currently in the game, you know, we can only choose the factions that are in the tower, and we can participate in the trials of Osiris. But Osiris had a huge following when he left. Toland, it's a little less clear if it was just him on his own or if he had a few people go with him. But and I guess another interesting point is that it tends to be warlocks. Warlocks Warlocks don't get along in the tower very well.
What are you trying to say?
Or in the real world.
Man, there's so much great flavor text on so many of the items between like hunters and warlocks and titans and warlocks, and it's all so snarky. It's great.
Yeah. And all right, I think that's good for this week. There's a lot more. We'll cover a lot more in the future, but hopefully to those of you who've just started the game or who are hoping to get a little bit better handle on what the world was that you were resurrected into, you have a good idea now of what's going on. X-Ray, why don't you tell everybody where they can find us?
Yeah, so you can find us at DGhostStories on Twitter, and we also have an email set up. You can send us some comments or suggestions. We are DestinyGhostStories@gmail.com. If you like us, follow us on Twitter, and you can also find us on iTunes. Go ahead and subscribe to us there, and we'll be doing this hopefully every week for you. And if you like it, like I said, give us some feedback and let us know what kind of stuff you want to hear. We can try to answer some of the tough questions or the easy ones. I know I have some remedial questions still that I'm going to be asking these guys. So that's it. That's us, Destiny Ghost Stories.
So all you listeners, thank you. Subscribe if you like us, and we will see you next week.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Pleasure.
See ya.
Yep. Have a good one.